This is a public view monitor. Now this can be a great addition to your business's surveillance system. Now it used to be pretty difficult to connect your security cameras to an external monitor like this, but not anymore. We're about to make your life much easier. Hi there, it's Tyler from Nelly Security, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at these security cameras with HDMI outputs. Connecting your security camera to an HDMI output can greatly increase your business's security. By showing your customers exactly what your security camera sees, you're reminding would-be criminals that you're recording their every move. But how do you connect a security camera to one of these external monitors? Well, if you have a standard security camera, it is a bit of a convoluted process. First and foremost, you can connect your security camera to an NVR and then connect your NVR to the external monitor. However, this raises a huge security concern, and that is you don't really want your NVR to be publicly accessible. Another option is you could use some kind of converter or decoder to take the video signals from your Cat5 Ethernet connection and convert that to an HDMI output. Now this adds a lot more pieces to your surveillance system, it adds a lot more time, you'll have a lot more things that could go wrong, you'll spend a lot more time troubleshooting. All of this just adds up to way more time and effort than you should be spending. But the good news is all of that is in the past because Nelly Security is bringing you a brand new security camera unlike any other. Our HDMI security cameras give you two outputs. You have your typical Cat5 Ethernet connection, but you also have an HDMI out connection. That means you can run the video signals from your security camera to an external monitor with an HDMI cable, while at the very same time using a separate Ethernet cable, you can run power and data to a PoE switch, to your NVR, or wherever you need to take that cable. In this one security camera, we've taken a process that used to take up to several hours and narrowed it down to just a few seconds. And in today's video, we're going to show you everything you need to know about these HDMI security cameras. First, I'm going to walk you through both models of this camera and take a look at all the specs. Next, I'll take you through a quick unboxing of this product because these security cameras do come with a couple of additional pieces that you won't find in your traditional IP security camera box. Next, we'll take a look under the dome and see how these cameras work. After that, I'll take you out to our showroom here at Nelly Security and we'll see a live demo of this camera. Then we'll hop on the interface, we'll take a look at some of the settings, and I'll show you some of the things that this camera can do. Finally, I'll show you how to install an unpreamplified microphone directly into this camera. Now that you know the layout of this video, let's go ahead and jump right in. Now, as I mentioned before, we have two models in our HDMI security camera series. We have a 1080p version and we have a 4K version. Now, whichever model you choose is totally going to depend on your personal needs and preferences. If you're going to be connecting this camera to a 4K Ultra HD monitor, then this 4K model will let you take advantage of each and every pixel available to you. This is definitely the camera you want if high definition is a priority for you. However, if you prefer smooth video to high quality video, then you'll really want to take a look at our 1080p version. It definitely doesn't come close to the high quality of the 4K version, but it does shoot video at 60 frames per second, whereas the 4K version only shoots at 20 frames per second. For some context, the human eye perceives motion at just under 24 frames per second. So that means at 20 frames per second, the 4K video is going to look slightly choppy, especially when you compare it to the 60 frames per second of the 1080p version. That video is going to be buttery smooth. So that's really the main difference between this camera. You have to choose between a high resolution and a high frame rate. Besides that, these two cameras are basically identical. They're not weatherproof, so you will want to make sure you keep these at an indoor location. However, they are both IK10 vandal-proof. Now, I highly doubt someone's going to come along and try to smash this since they'll see themselves doing it on your monitor. But just in case someone wants to try, they won't be able to. These cameras have a 2.8mm fixed lens with a wide field of view, so you can capture a pretty wide area with one camera. Now, the 1080p version does have a slightly wider field of view at 108 degrees, compared to the 4K's 103 degrees. They have an IR range of about 98 feet, which is incredible for an indoor camera. And of course, as part of our H series, you can enjoy remote viewing from your phone or from your desktop computer, instant plug-and-play video with all H series recorders, plus it's ONVIF compatible for use with most third-party recorders. Inside the box, you'll see some familiar items. Your software CD, your product manual, your mounting template, but you'll also see some new accessories in here. First, you'll notice that we do have a familiar pigtail with our alarm in and out, our audio in and out, and our DC 12-volt connections. However, unlike other cameras, this pigtail does not come attached to the camera. You only need to connect this cable if you're going to be making use of any of these connections. Second, we have a micro HDMI to HDMI adapter. You'll connect the micro end of the cable into your security camera to get the full HDMI output. This camera also comes with a handy fabric lens cleaner. Next, you'll find your hex wrench, your mounting hardware, and this tiny 12-volt DC adapter. If you need to hardwire a power supply to your camera, you'll need this little adapter. And here is the camera. It's sleek, it's compact. It really does have a great design both inside and out. This camera is going to look beautiful and professional wherever you install it. Now that we've seen everything that comes with the HDMI security camera, let's open up the dome and take a look inside. It's very simple to take apart using the included hex wrench. Simply unscrew these two screws and the dome pops right off. Now again, the first thing you'll notice about this camera is that there is no pigtail. Actually, I have a standard Vandal dome here. For a little bit of contrast, here is another one of our H series Vandal domes, and you can see that it has this long pigtail coming off of it with these two connections for Ethernet and for 12-volt DC. Now, a lot of our other cameras have even more connections than this in the pigtail, so it can get pretty messy at the install site, especially if there's a bunch of connections included in the pigtail that you're not going to use. So that's one really nice feature about these HDMI security cameras, is you don't have to deal with that long and messy pigtail. Now again, this does come with an included pigtail if you need some additional connections, such as for alarm cables or audio cables, and later on in this video, I'll show you how to connect and use that pigtail. But for now, let's just take a quick look under the dome to see the basic connection interfaces. Now the first thing I want to show you is this hole here at the bottom of the security camera. You'll be running all of your connections through this hole. So I'll go ahead and take this micro to full HDMI converter, and I will run it through the bottom of that hole. Just like that. Now right here you'll see the micro HDMI connection interface, so I'll go ahead and plug this cable in here. Next to the HDMI output you'll see a 12-volt DC connection. We're not going to be using a 12-volt DC connection today because we're going to be connecting our camera to power using power over Ethernet or PoE. And that's actually the next connection right here. You'll see the RJ45 connection port for your Cat5 Ethernet cable. Now let's keep working our way around this camera. On the other side of the HDMI output, you'll see a simple reset button. And right next to the reset button, you'll find a port for a micro SD card. Now this camera can support micro SD cards up to 128 gigabytes. So I will go ahead and insert this micro SD card here so that we can save images and video directly to the camera. This is perfect for a standalone camera if you don't have an NVR. And now as we work our way around to this side, we have the security screw that holds the dome in place so that it doesn't fall when you're working on it. And we do have the audio and alarm connections here. This is where you'll plug that external pigtail if you need to make use of those additional cable connections. And that's about all there is to the connection interfaces on this camera. You can see it's very clean under there. It's very organized. So I do have this monitor set up behind me. So let's go ahead and plug this in and I can show you just how easy it is to get this camera connected to that external monitor in just 2 steps. I'm simply going to set this camera up by plugging it into a PoE switch. And then once the camera's booted up, I'm going to connect it to an HDMI cable and we'll see the video instantly appear here behind me. There we go, the IR lights flashed on, so I know that the camera is now booted up. I'll give it a few seconds as the camera turns itself on. And now I'm going to take this HDMI cable, which I have connected directly to this monitor, and plug it into our security camera. And there we go. Just like that, we have instant video on our external monitor. These cameras are going to save you so much time and effort. All right, that's enough bench testing. Now I'm going to take you out to our showroom here at Nelly Security, where I'm going to show you a live public view monitor using one of these cameras. So here we are in our showroom at Nelly Security, and you can see behind me that we have a public view monitor set up using one of these HDMI security cameras. We're currently using the 1080p version to take advantage of that high frame rate, that super smooth video. Currently, it's only set to 30 frames per second instead of 60 frames per second, but I'll explain why here in a minute. As you can see, this produces very nice video onto that external monitor. There's almost no latency between the camera and the monitor. This really is an excellent camera in general, and especially if you need a camera that connects easily to an external monitor. So it's a bit difficult to see back here, but we have the security camera set up right here, and the external monitor is there. Now we have these two cables coming out of the security camera. We have our Ethernet cable, which just runs back here to a PoE switch in this hallway behind our showroom. And we also have the HDMI cable, which runs directly to that external monitor. So you can see, again, this is a very simple setup, just 2 steps. Connect your Ethernet, connect your HDMI cable, and you have an instant external monitor. Now let's hop onto the camera's interface and change a couple of the settings and see what this camera can do. Alright, so here we are on the web interface for our showroom HDMI security camera that we were just looking at. I'm going to jump into configuration and show you a few things behind the scenes. First thing I want to talk about is the WDR settings, which is found in Image and Backlight settings. WDR stands for Wide Dynamic Range, and this takes the entire image, the dark points and the bright points, and kind of evens out the brightness to get a more even and balanced picture. Let me show you what I'm talking about. If I turn off the WDR settings, you can see that our camera, let me go back to the live view here, pretty much everything outside is very bright and everything inside is pretty dark. That's because everything is washed out because of that bright background. So now I'm going to go back into configuration, image, and let's turn the WDR on. Now what this does, again, it balances out the light. It kind of brings up the light in the dark areas and brings down the brightness in the light areas so that we have a good, clean, and even image. We can see pretty easily what's going on here in the foreground. We have a much nicer video here with the WDR turned on. However, there is one drawback to having your WDR settings turned on. Let me go into video and audio. It's this frame rate. It cuts our frame rate in half. There is that give and take with the WDR settings turned on. However, even cut in half at 30 frames per second, you can watch these cars back here in the background. It's still really smooth video, especially compared to the 4K, which again is 20 frames per second. Let me jump back into configuration. I will turn off that WDR setting so that we can turn the 60 frames per second back on. And we will take a look at the difference between 30 and 60 frames per second. So here we are again. Pay no attention to the dark video here on the inside of the showroom. Really what I want you to focus on is these cars in the background at this 60 frames per second. So yeah, that's pretty much what you need to know about the WDR settings. I just wanted to bring this up because a lot of times a public view monitor is set up at the front of a building, either in a lobby or some kind of entrance. And so I know a lot of times these cameras are going to be pointed directly toward a very bright source, kind of like this one is here. However, if you're not going to be pointing your camera toward a bright source, if the lighting is always going to be pretty even, you can always leave the WDR settings off to take full advantage of this beautiful 60 frames per second. And now I'm just going to go ahead and turn those WDR settings back on just to make sure people can see themselves when they walk into the building, because that monitor we have up front is a little bit darker. So I'm even going to bump this WDR settings up to maybe 65 or 70. So even though this inside is starting to look a little bright now from the interface's perspective, It's going to look really nice on that monitor up in the front. Now there's one last thing I want to show you before we wrap up this video, and that's how to use the external pigtail. Again, you're going to need to use this pigtail if you want to use audio connections, alarm connections, or a 12-volt DC connection. Now just for the sake of demonstration, we're going to go ahead and attach an unpreamplified microphone to this camera. Now the really cool thing about unpreamplified microphones is that it actually gets its power from the camera itself. This is really nice because we don't have to run extra wires, we don't have to have a secondary power supply or anything like that. Everything will be all contained in this camera and this microphone. Now the first thing you'll notice is the connection is actually this 3-pin audio input. Unfortunately, very few of our security cameras actually have this connection type. So the first thing you'll want to do is just snip off that end, and we will work with just the wires in the cable. So we'll go ahead and strip off a piece of this jacket to reveal the wires inside. Now inside you can see we have all these tiny copper wires and a little piece of aluminum foil wrapped around a red and a white wire. All those copper wires you can twist together. So now we have one copper wire, one white wire, one red wire, and this piece of foil. Now we're not going to be using the white wire or the foil, so we can actually go ahead and cut those back just to get them out of the way. So now we are left with a red wire and a copper wire. The red wire is going to be our audio in wire, and the copper wire will be our ground. We'll want to strip just a little bit off of this red wire to reveal the copper inside of it. And again, since this is a microphone, we're going to be sticking this into the audio in. And our copper wire goes into the ground terminal. And there we go. That's how easy it is to set up a mic level microphone to the security camera. And now we'll take the other end of our pigtail and we'll insert it into this audio and alarm connection here. As you can see, there is a little channel here for us to push the pigtail cable into, just so it's not loose in there under the dome. It keeps everything nice and clean and organized. And there we go. Let's go install this back up on the wall and test out our new microphone. I'm going to go ahead and hop on the interface here to change a couple of settings. And now we should be good to go. All right, we're back here in our showroom and our HDMI security camera is back up on the wall, and the microphone that we just connected is all installed and ready to go. So let's go take a look. All right, you're now hearing audio directly from this security camera using the unpreamplified microphone that we just installed. Keep in mind that your HDMI cable will only carry video signals from the security camera to the external monitor and not audio signals. Well, that's about it for this video. Be sure to click the links down below to check out these cameras and pick up yours today. Subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us across all of our social media platforms so you never miss a security video. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.